everyone who are here and welcome back. I am here to read the final installment of The Broken Promise to you. I hope that you have enjoyed the Halloween Horror Fest for the month of October. Beginning the month of November and December, I will be sharing uplifting romantic stories for the holidays, along with still some of your favorite horrors here and there. So I invite you today to sit back and let's find out what happens.
Stone cold. Now I know what you are. Broke my soul when you sat in his car. Yeah, you can keep digging gold, cause I know that you need it. Just never mind that you left my heart bleeding. I hope you know that there's no way I'll take you back. You should've loved me better than. You should've loved me better than. Me better than. You should've loved me better than. Me better than. Because the games that you play has left me with.
Hayden. The first time I heard her struggling in her sleep, I turned over and found her hands curled up into fists and her body covered in sweat. She looked like a person in the middle of fighting a seizure. It scared me. I reached over and shook her awake, and immediately she hugged me and began crying. This was shortly after I met her and we began seeing each other on a daily basis. Then she told me about the man in her dreams who kept visiting her, and how she had tried to run but kept being pulled back in. I had heard of sleep paralysis from friends, but I had never personally experienced it myself. This was my first time witnessing it happen to someone I knew. It freaked me out. Imagine waking up and seeing the woman beside you fold her body in half like the exorcist. After a few times of it happening, I called my grandmother in the West Coast and she told me about a temple not too far from Brooklyn. She suggested I take Lena there to get her blessed and find a monk to give her a protection amulet. As I drove her there on Friday morning, I looked at her and saw that she was physically exhausted and looked really pale. It left me fighting an invisible battle. I come from the West Coast, with the white sandy beaches, the hot weather, and the dry air. My father is a senator who lives in his high mansion with my mother, who is silent about his repeated love affairs and shows up as a supportive wife in public so he gains votes. I am the son he'd rather not talk about, who keeps making headlines. I bounced from front page to front page until eventually my father threatened to cut me out of his will. So I saved him the trouble. I cut him out first. When I arrived on the East Coast, the air was quite different, and I was still like the tourist, gazing at the high buildings and walking looking halfway up to the sky. I was gawky and awkward and didn't quite fit in. I had exactly $100 to my name, and I was searching for something to do before I ended up having to join the bums on the street in Central Park. I walked into this corner bar, and the bartender behind the counter gave me the most incredible smile. It had been a long time since anyone gave me an honest smile like that, and I fed off of it. We spent a glorious night together, which I'm sure she thought was going to be a one-night stand. But it turned out to be more because I liked her more than I should have. Normally girls like her would tango in the sheets and leave before morning light, but I found myself still curled up next to her when dawn arrived. She liked it, and so did I. So I stayed, and she worked out something with an uncle of hers to give me a job. I never had a job, honestly, before because I lived off my father, but now I understood the struggle. I was cooking at the Chinese shop her uncle worked at, and although it was long hours and greasy atmosphere, I got paid. But today I was bringing Lena to the temple and hoping to find her a cure to get rid of this man in her dreams. I admit that I was jealous of him because he robbed her mind when she was unable to control herself, and mostly when I wasn't around to protect her. It made me feel weak, and I hated that man, whoever he was. I haven't been here before, Lena said beside me in the car. She had ripped open a package of potato chips and was munching as she looked at the fall foliage around her. How does your grandmother know of this place? She had a friend who told her. Oh, does it cost money to get blessed by monks? I shrugged. I don't think so, but I assumed they would be open to donations of any size. Don't worry about it, honey. I got you. I just want you to feel better. She looked away from me, and I felt sad as I knew she was hiding things from me. Lately, when I woke up, she was in the shower sitting underneath the water, crying. She thinks I don't know, but I do. And I can't reach her when she's like that. I know that she had a lot of pain before I met her, and in a way, she is still dealing with it. But I feel useless at times. Have you had any more dreams? I asked. Shaking her head, she replied, No, not as of late, but I feel it's going to return and it may be twice the hit. She once described him to me, and I felt my heart getting heavy. A handsome man who also had the face of a monster. He spoke eloquent words that were drenched with seduction and understood her every single desire. He could read her and gifted her everything she wanted in return for her soul. He sounded like the devil. We arrived at the temple, a huge, sprawling building with ancient roofing and designs that had a large green dragon surrounding the top with a huge golden Buddha statue beside it. I parked the car and we got out, and immediately, Lena took out her phone to snap photos. I saw a few people walking around, and a door with the words open was lit up. I called for her to join me, and we walked toward it, removing our shoes before we entered. The inside smelled of incense sticks, had candles lit, and the chanting of a monk sitting at the altar dressed in orange was heard. A large golden statue was stationed behind the monk, and there were a few people who were sitting cross-legged on the floor, their hands in prayers. We joined them and listened as the monk continued chanting. Afterwards, we walked to him, and he took 2 strings, blew on them, and tied one on her and one on me. But then his eyes fell to Lena, and he took another amulet from his bowl and handed it to her. For you, he whispered. You have a shadow around you. Don't let it win. She took it with trembling hands and thanked the monk. We dropped donations into the jar, and as we walked out the door, she blacked out. Lena. The smell threatened him. I could feel his hands on my throat, clutching and denying me to get help. His body was hardened to a crust, and I could hear his whispers around me. I tried to run, and small little maggots began poking out from my skin. Screaming, I watched as they wiggled out of my pores, and I pulled them out one by one, and their tiny bodies danced on the dirt. I was rotting inside. The trees that were around me were low and haunting as they tried to grab me and pushed me into a corner, grabbing at my skirts, ripping my hair out of my head, and scratching at my flesh. I was running, and something was chasing me. I could hear the sound of feet pattering, and then suddenly he appeared out of the darkness. His eyes darkened, and his lips upturned into a devilish grin. Why do you defy me? He asked in his low voice. Have I not given you everything your heart desired? When you came to me, you were in so much pain you were literally dead. I backed away as he came out from the shadows, his shoulders hunched over and his lips still holding a frozen smile in place. Leave me alone. Leave you alone? After I saved you, you ask me to leave you? Where is your gratitude for me? Have you forgotten how I wiped your tears and carried you when you were on your knees? You are absent of kindness when you push me into the corner because you have a new lover. What has he that I have not? My breath became ragged, and I felt heavy as I sank to the ground. Everything was foggy, and I was shaking as I put up my hands to protect myself. Stop! I cried, and then I heard the sound of bells, and I looked up to find the monk wearing orange gently descend down. He roared violently as the monk took the beaded bracelets from his hand and began chanting. I saw his fangs retract, and then a cloud of dust surrounded me, and I gasped awake. Lena, Hayden said as he helped me to sit up. I was inside what looked like a resting place in the temple, and there were several monks sitting around me. One of them I recognized as the man who gave me the amulet earlier, and the one who saved me. You saved me, I said. Thank you. He smiled and bowed his head toward me. I am Master Yar. You are tainted much with an entity that is impure. Might I have your hand? I extended my hand to him, and he took it, running his fingers over my palm. His eyes closed, and then suddenly he opened his eyes and let my hand go. What is that? I asked. You invited him, didn't you? He asked. I swallowed hard as I lowered my gaze. In my darkest moments, yes, I did. He's very attached to you. Your every thought is cornered by him and owned by his dark energy. He has grown quite close to you through the years, feeling as if you are his bride. But I fear that the two of you may have a longer history than this. This is something you will have to discover for yourself. Hayden's arms tightened around me, and I removed myself from his hold. Hearing this while in his arms felt wrong, and I brushed back my hair, feeling as if I had cheated on the man who loved me so much. How do you know that? I asked. The monk gave me a gentle smile. I could feel his energy as soon as you arrived here. His presence creates a dark force around this place, and my senses were heightened. When you sat across from me, I could see him hanging from your shoulders, glaring. And then he turned to Hayden, at him with hatred. Me? Hayden asked. Why me? Because you took her from him. I don't understand, Hayden said. How is that valid when he's not even of this life? Master Yar smiled again, and he rolled the beads between his fingers. Life need not be something you see. An energy that has a force to take life is what he is. In his world, he is a very powerful king with a lot of magic sources. He can shield himself in every form and appear as a normal being in dreams. But remove this shield, and you see a monster. I finished. I have seen him in his true form, and it's ugly. Tears pricked my eyes, and I rubbed my face with my hands trying to remove the pain. I'm scared. What can I do? Can you stay here? For a few days. I'd like to try a ritual on you. It may help, but it may also put you into a coma for a few days, the monk replied. What? No way, Hayden cried. That's not happening. Why must I be in a coma? I asked. Hayden looked at me as if I was crazy, but I ignored him. I needed this thing fixed. Master Yar looked at me for a moment before he replied. I will be in a coma beside you, and it is the only way how I can take you with me to get rid of this once and for all. If you do not feel comfortable, I will not force you, but I would like to try, if you are willing. Lena, I don't think that's something you should do, Hayden said. I don't like the idea of it. What if something goes wrong? I turned to him and took his hand. Hayden, I'm so tired of this thing chasing me. I want it to end as much as possible. I need you here. He took me into his arms. I will be here if you choose to do this. I will not let you go through this alone, but I feel that we should let your parents know. I shook my head and sobbed into his arms. I'm already dead to them. Then I turned to Master Yar. I will do it. What do you need me to do? Waldemar. The blood I coughed up was from the amulet the monk had given her. The smell made my eyes burn, and I couldn't breathe as I crawled my way up to the stairs, leaving a bloody trail of handprints. The damn woman had believed everything the monk told her, and now had a shield protected over her. The damn boyfriend. He was a leader in all this doing. Gagging, I stood on shaking legs and felt my muscles spasm, and it sent me down on my knees again. I heard someone entering the hall, and I turned to find Bellamy walking in, with a smile of deep satisfaction. My lord, how does it feel to be cornered by the one woman you have desired? She asked. May I remind you how close to death you are with that smell? It is a good thing that I had asked for protection earlier from the priest. I knew you would return with something like this. How did you know? I asked through clenched teeth. How could anyone not know? The woman was literally sending prayers through to the universe. All you had to do was listen, and you would hear that she was sick to the bones of you chasing after her. The one place you are wanted and you do not care to be, while the other place that threatens your very life and you can't get enough of. What a fool you are. I turned to her and hissed. Silence your voice, woman. Extend a hand now. She laughed and shook her head. Such foolish requests from you, my lord. Do you honestly think I would relent and give in? In the past, perhaps I would have come crying to you and licked your wounds. But today, this very moment, I shall watch you fall to your knees. I roared, and with the injury, I couldn't shift myself into my dragon form. But she did, and with one whisk, she shoved me flat on my back, her eyes glowing green at me with her forked tongue extending out.
My lord, if you dare so utter another request for me to endure, I shall rip out the heart of the woman you desire and eat it for you to watch.
She jumped, and instantly was her mortal self as she lowered herself to the ground and tilted my chin up. I will now play with your weakness. If you touch her, you and I will become enemies. Laughing, she replied, Oh, the great fool you are, husband. You and I already are enemies. You turned yourself into my greatest conquest when you decided I was not enough for you. Now, what as I deliver victory? The injury to my wounds took a few hours to heal, and by then Bellamy was gone and nowhere to be found. The anger in me fumed, and I thought back to Lena's shape and form, remembering how the monk had saved her and made me weaken to the point of where I lost all feelings in my limbs. I needed to figure out how to reach Lena and make her see that I was the only true love for her. When I gathered my cloak and was heading out, I heard the sound of the war drums coming across the wind. One of the servants rushed into my chamber and knelt down immediately. What is going on? I asked. King Waldemar, it is the Queen. She has formed battle formations and is aiming toward the castle walls. She seeks to destroy. Roaring, I shifted and flew out to meet her at the edge of the battlegrounds, where she sat on a horse, wearing a red armor, sword in hand, and ready to devour. Shifting back to Mordor, I walked to her as she got off the horse and met me halfway. You imbecile! This is the land that bridges our kind together. Why are you starting a bloody war when you know you cannot win? I asked. Her eyes glowed, and then she snapped her fingers. Warriors from within my castle walls stood, popped out like flower heads all around me and as far as the eyes could see. You forget that although you are the king, it is my hand that has ruled over centuries. While you were out having affairs with the mortals, I kept the people safe. One word and the entire army now belongs to me. You witch! I cried, and I launched myself at her. She shifted into dragon, and her spikes entered my chest, forcing me down on my knees. A fleet of arrows flew, and one pierced my shoulder.
You asked for this, my lord. When I was gentle and loving, you did not see me. So let me be cruel and mad so you can finally regret losing what you did not love. Now while you bleed here, I shall pay a visit to your little Lena.
Bellamy. The atmosphere was cold as I followed Lena's scent to a temple outside of her apartment. There, on the top of the hill, I saw several monks sweeping and meditating. So this was how Waldemar found himself injured and returned with heaving. I lowered myself to the grounds and took the shielding powder I concocted and spread it over myself. And then I shifted into mortar clothes and stepped out of the forest. I began walking over, and the monk sweeping looked up at me. Good day, he said. We are near closing for the hour, sister. You shall have to return tomorrow. Where is your master? I seek shelter. He pointed toward the opened entrance. Master Yar is inside. Thank you. I walked past them and inside, where the many statues stared at me. I sneered at them, and I felt their energy drift away. An older monk wearing orange, holding a handful of tiger-eye pearls, was sitting on a padded cushion in front of the praying temple. Are you Master Ya? I asked. He didn't open his eyes, but he replied, Who seeks me? I'm Bellamy, a drifting visitor, and I came here to seek shelter for the night. Does your temple offer a home to those who are in need? He opened his eyes, but he didn't smile. Bellamy, a unique name gifted to you. You have come far. The scent on you is not something I recognize. Do you hide anything beneath your form? Smiling, I replied, I am but a simpleton who requires hospitality. The name I did not choose. He nodded and waved a hand to the west shelter. A chamber should be prepared for you. Thank you. I watched as he closed his eyes again, and I walked toward the west temple and entered to find it dimly lit. A cot was in the far corner with some soft curtains around it. "Who are you?" I turned around and came face to face with Lena. Standing before her, I realized why my husband was so intoxicated with her. She was oozing seduction and pain, a cocktail that made even my own heart come alive. "I am Bellamy. I seek shelter for the night. You are?" "Lena," she said as she came toward me. "My boyfriend and I, too, are seeking shelter for the night." "Do you travel alone?" "Yes." "Your accent is beautiful. Where are you from originally?" I smiled and replied, "From a place where I'd rather not go back to." "I understand what you mean. I have been through that myself. I am glad to meet you. Have a good night." I watched her walk away and saw her enter the farther house on the left. She was deeply asleep, her eyes closed, her lips open slightly. Her boyfriend had his back turned toward her, and she was clutching a pillow in her arms. Her feet were uncovered, and I bent down, taking a bite at her feet. She gasped and sat up in bed as I released my tongue and licked her from cheek to cheek. She screamed, and I slammed her body down, climbing on top of her, squeezing the life force out of her. Her eyes were bright with tears, and then suddenly I heard the bell chiming, and my scales stood on edge. A trap. I released her and veiled myself into the colors of the wall as the door opened while Lena coughed and her boyfriend woke up. Master Yar entered with a candle in his hand. "Master Yar," she cried, "please help me. Something was trying to kill me tonight. It had more power than before, and its energy was different." "Are you all right?" her boyfriend asked. Hissing, I removed myself from the wall as the commotion continued. Outside of the chamber, I returned to my mortal self and joined the many who were walking the path to where Lena was housed. "What's going on?" I asked. "Master Yar shall soon find out," a monk ahead of me said. When I neared the chamber, however, the line of salt at the door already began burning my eyes. I took a step back, and the monk ahead of me turned to glance at me. "You are not entering?" he asked. "No," I said. "I do not want to intrude Master Yar's work." He smiled. "There is no need to fear. Master Yar can work with 1,000 eyes watching." Then he gestured for me. "Please enter." If I went, I knew I would get my scales burnt. The trap was set, and I hadn't realized how powerful Master Yar was. Before I could answer, the master emerged, and his eyes looked at me with deep questioning. "Why do you seek refuge here?" he asked. "What is your true intention?" "You knew?" I asked. "How could I not? You may try to veil what you wish, but I can still smell you from 1,000 miles away. It is your hate that gives you away. What has this mortal done to make you anger this much?" I realized he was right. My hate did fill me, and it multiplied at the very moment. She takes my king, and holds him captive with her beauty. He has lost his warmth toward me. The price I require is her heart. Master Yar raised his hand in prayer. She does not wish to hold his heart at all. It is her wish to rid of him, and yet it is he who will not let go. Perhaps this is something you should take up with your king and not this mortal. Your choice will lead you to leave this place on your knees. Do you wish to truly continue? I knew he was right. I knew I was making her pay for something my own husband had done. When I glanced at her again, her eyes told me she was truly frightened of not only me, but also my husband. Perhaps at one point she did enjoy his presence, but now she merely thought of him as a devil. My eyes fell back to Master Yar, and I began to back out. "You cleansed her well." I turned, and my wings ripped open from my sides as I flew to the night sky, roaring with an anger and hate at my husband. The fire I released from deep within my lungs burned the sky as it rained ashes. I arrived at the gates of the palace halls, my flesh burning from the falling embers of fire. I saw Waldemar standing at the entrance with his wings spread out from his shoulders, his nostrils flaring.
"You have forced my hand to make you bleed, wife,"
He said.
"and you have forced mine to rip your heart out. The last standing one shall eat the other's organ until it is entirely diminished. Today, I spit your name into the ashes and rise to claim your throne."
As I shifted into my dragon form, so did he, and we collided together in the sky, a burst of roars echoing together as he tore one of my wings and I fell, blood oozing from my wound. The injury damaged my ability to transform, and as I coughed and stood on trembling legs, he lashed out his tongue at me, taking a good chunk of my flesh with him. I dropped to the ground, feeling numb as he came to stand before me.
I told you, wife, you would be bleeding. You dare to go against me, when you are nothing but a little ant I will crush beneath my feet.
I smiled as I curled my hand into a fist, and with one move jammed it into his chest, ripping out his heart. He gasped and fell beside me as I lifted his organ to my lips.
And I promise to eat your heart out.
Lena. The images of the two dragons killing each other played in my mind as I jerked awake, gasping for breath. Master Yar and Hayden were sitting beside me as I pushed myself to sit up. I reached up and ripped Hayden's shirt open, and right there, the small burn mark I'd seen once before taunted me. The coma that Master Yar put me in told me the truth. It told me everything. The man I'd been seeing in my dreams, the man I'd been sleeping with, the man who wouldn't let me go, was none other than Hayden himself from the past lifetime. We had been rival enemies, him choosing a mortal and leaving me and myself, facing the truth and seeing who I used to be. We were enemies, fighting and killing each other until our bloods mixed in together with our tears. What's wrong? Hayden asked. Are you okay? Master Yar, I said as I turned to the monk. Is it true? Was what I saw true? Your fate has led you here, and it has been gifted to you to understand what you are. Your past has collided with your present, making your future absolutely horrendous. What you choose to do will lead you either out of the situation you are in or dig you deeper. Choose wisely. What's going on? Hayden cried. I turned to him and took his hand, leading him outside. Once there, I turned around and I looked at him with sad eyes. I had wondered why I felt so drawn to you, Hayden. Now I know why. Can you stop speaking in riddles? Did you ever wonder why we met? What are you talking about? When I was put into the coma by Master Yar, I saw our very last battle together, Hayden. We killed each other. Your past life, you and I were husband and wife, dragon, king and queens, ruling the world until you fell in love with a mortal. My past life is running with my present, and it has unglued me, Hayden. I am dreaming of my past, and the past is you, and the present is you, but if I choose you, my future will be lost. Hayden laughed as he came to hold me. Lena, what the hell are you talking about? Don't believe anything while you are suffering through this. I want to save you, I do, but you cannot push me away like this. I stepped away from him. If we stay together, we will kill one another. The only way to be safe is to leave you. His eyes darkened, and then suddenly he grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward him. No, his voice changed suddenly. I will not lose you. I knew immediately who he was, and I reached up to touch his face. Waldemar, you were once a brilliant and courageous king. Let go of the past and move on. You chose your own path when you gifted another your heart and not me. For centuries you have been trying to rewrite your story so that you and I can end up together, but there is an absence of trust in us, and it will lead us to fall enemies of each other again. Let go, Waldemar, let go! You took my life in another time, and if you stay with me, you will do it again. We will always keep hurting one another. Then I watched as his eyes turned green, and he dropped to his knees. He looked up at me and with one instant pulled out the knife from his pocket and stabbed me in the belly. The force left me breathless as I dropped to my knees and tears entered my eyes. You will still choose this route even after so many years, I whispered. No one can have you, he cried. No one but me. I smiled, and then I removed the knife and pierced his heart, ripping out his organ. I devoured your heart last time. This time, I shall make it disappear. And squeezing with all my might, his heart exploded into 1,000 tiny pieces. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to The Broken Promise. I hope that you enjoyed this story. I'll see you in the next episode.
Stone cold. Now I know what you are. Broke my soul when you sat in his car. Yeah, you can keep digging gold, cause I know that you need it. Just never mind that you left my heart bleeding. I hope you know that there's no way I'll take you back. You should've loved me better then. You should've loved me better than, me better than. You should've loved me better than, me better than. Because the games that you play has left me with a big scar. Now I know what you want. Because the games that you play has left me with a big scar. You better quit calling me your lover. You better quit calling me your lover. Let